300 cameras around me and capturing everything, that all my movements, my facial expressions, everything, while I was doing the dialogue. And it was really amazing. I mean, we didn't do that on 3. I was never in a room with 300 cameras.
Welcome back to Under Oath. Welcome back to Under Oath. Today we're going to be interviewing Thomas Haden Church, actor from Sideways, Spider-Man 3, and ridiculously amount of work that I've loved throughout the year. Tom, can you hear me?
I can. Good morning.
Oh, good morning. It's such a pleasure, man. I can't tell you. I've loved you for years, for your Emmy stuff, your Oscar-nominated stuff. It's been amazing. And you have a new movie coming out called Accidental Texan?
Accidental Texan, yeah. It's going to be in theaters March 8th, all across this great nation.
You know, COVID was very weird because for a long time we didn't have movies and everything else, and now we're finally getting the movies back in the theater. We're enjoying them again. You know, during that time during COVID where you're not able to perform, you're not going out there. I mean, how great was it to finally be able to just go, good, thank God the industry is moving up again. We're able to do a lot more things, and I get back on track with all the projects I want to do.
Well, I mean, I live in Texas full time, and I have for 20 odd years. And so when the pandemic happened, which I guess was really spring of 20 to 21, yeah, you know, I think it was a reset for everybody. And then it's funny because as soon as it was over, bam, I did 3 pictures that year. I did a smaller movie called Acid Man. I did Spider-Man No Way Home, and did Accidental Texan. And so, yeah, it was really an opportunity to you know, I mean, you know, opportunities were still around. They were just discussed and sort of sharpened, and then again, you know, once it was all kind of lifted and we were free to roam the range, it was good. It was good.
Now, a lot of actors didn't have these tough careers before they started. For example, you know, I read something where you worked in the oil fields before you went to college, and you know, I can't even imagine what that was like.
Well, I dropped out of high school when I was a junior, much to my parents' dismay. And I worked for about 6 months in the oil field in South Texas, and also a little bit in Southern Louisiana. And I quickly realized I did not want to be at the blue collar end of that industry. And my parents had moved to another town in Texas, and so I got a fresh start at a different high school, and yeah, and graduated and went on to go to school at the University of North Texas, and then, you know, things sort of blossomed from there, and ultimately moved to LA and started my career in LA. But yeah, I'm fortunate to have had a lot of experiences before I ever became an actor.
Now, I was reading that you started your career in radio. Is that right?
Correct. When I was in high school.
How do you get the radio gig?
You know, I had an English teacher, and her nickname for me was Thunder Whisper, because I couldn't even whisper in the back of the classroom without her hearing me. Excuse me, I'm clearing my throat. Her husband worked at a country station, and he quit, and she recommended that I go in and apply for the job, which I did, and I got it. I was 17, and I got the gig, and then my senior year, I worked at 2 different radio stations. I worked at an album rock kind of top 40 station. I know album rock is probably an antiquated term, but and then when I went to North Texas, we were definitely an album rock station. Depending on your shift and your taste in music, you could play whatever you wanted. And I worked there for 3 years. So I was actively in radio from 78 to 82.
And suddenly you're just like going, you know what? I think I want to do acting. I mean, people get the bug for different reasons. Where do you think it came from? The radio or somewhere else?
Well, no, from radio, I got a voiceover agent in Dallas, and she started sending me out on auditions, and that's where I got my first acting role. And then that casting director happened to be from LA, and he said, "Look, I think you might have a shot, but you got to be in LA." And so I got my union card in Dallas, my SAG card, and moved to LA, and started getting. I was fortunate, very fortunate. I started getting jobs right away.
How long was it from you moved to California till you got the role on Cheers?
That would be. It was about 8 months. It was about 8 months, and straight off of Cheers, I was cast in Wings, and then I did Wings for 6 seasons.
You know, I remember when Wings came out, and I remember your character was, you know, it always happens where a character in the background who has this minor role takes off and everyone loved it's their favorite character. I mean, was this something you just go, listen, I knew this character, or did it develop over time?
Well, they wrote that character. So they saw me do Cheers because our producers, our creators had been on Cheers for years. And then they left Cheers to do Wings. They literally saw me rehearsing that episode of Cheers. They had a character that was very much like Lowell in Wings. But then whenever they cast me, they decided to sort of combine three characters into one, so that he wasn't just a guy that showed up now and then, that he was a guy that could actually be in every episode. And yeah, that kind of a character, they're always Joey on Friends, or obviously Woody on Cheers. You know, those characters, the guys that are kind of like not with it completely, they're always relatable, and they're oftentimes, they're audience favorites because they're more relatable than, say, the really good looking guy or the hot girl, or the intellectual. They're typically more relatable.
You know, it was interesting because I remember when I first saw your first incarnation of the Sandman, Flint Marko, in Spider-Man 3, and I thought that was so well done. I could never even imagine that 10, 15 years later, you'd come back in the same role. How is that even, suddenly you're being told, hey, yeah, they want you back to play this character that, you had done 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah, it was principally John Watts, the director, who, whenever they were developing it, I had heard way before I spoke with John, who's a wonderful director, really smart guy, really great storyteller. But I had heard, my agents had gotten bumped by Sony. Hey, we might be interested in having, Thomas back. Would he be interested? And of course, I love the character of Flint Marko and Sandman. I just think, that such a heartfelt character, very, very touching sort of story. And I was happy to step into those shoes again. And so John and I just started having conversations and working with the writers and developing that storyline. It was a lot of fun, and it was great to be back and great to get to know another filmmaker.
Now, a lot of times certain actors don't like to read anything about the character beforehand. They don't want to read the comic books. They don't want to go back. They want this fresh take on the character. Did you do any research, or you're going, no, I'll just stick to the script and go forward from there?
It was really on Spider-Man 3. I loved the Spider-Man comic books when I was a kid, and Spider-Man was really my favorite whenever I was growing up in the 60s and the 70s. And but I wasn't specifically familiar with Sandman. But then whenever I met with Sam Raimi and he laid out the whole story for me. He literally had all the storyboard panels in his office and just walked me through the whole script and story with all the visuals. And then it was like, okay, because they didn't even have a script at that point. And then it was like, okay, I'm in. I mean, because I really wanted to work with Sam Raimi, and I wanted to be a part of the Spider-Man world. And while we were shooting Sideways, Spider-Man 2 came out, and I just really thought it was amazing. I thought Alfred Molina was terrific in it, and Toby, I had always admired Toby as a young actor. So it just was an opportunity that I was so thankful to get.
Now, the differences between shooting Spider-Man 3 and, No Way Home, I'm trying to even imagine the technology differences. I mean, were they using green screens back in Spider-Man 3? Was the acting different? I mean, how do you even process the differences in the technology over that period of time?
All of, my performance in No Way Home is almost exclusively, as the Sandman. And yeah, how much the technology had really leapt forward from shooting Spider-Man 3 in 2005 and 2006. And then I shot, all my CG stuff on Spider-Man 3 or Spider-Man No Way Home in 2021. That was all on a stage with literally 300 cameras around me and capturing everything, that all my movements, my facial expressions, everything, while I was doing the dialogue. And it was really amazing. I mean, we didn't do that on 3. I was never in a room with 300 cameras.
Now, you had mentioned before about the opportunity to work with all these fantastic actors on No Way Home. And I remember seeing the room, and it was you, Alfred Molina, William Dafoe, the 3 actors who play Spider-Man. I mean, I can't even imagine sitting in that room with that talent going, is this actually happening?
I was never with them. It was all, and Jamie Foxx also, who I know, who I met years and years ago, because we were both up for Academy Awards in the same year. Jamie was triumphant in the great performance of Ray Charles. But I was never with those guys. I did another picture with Willem, and I've met Alfred, and he's a really wonderful actor and a wonderful person, as is Willem, as is Jamie. And then, Toby I'd worked with in person, but I never met Andrew Garfield or Tom Holland. But I thought the premise of No Way Home was really just outrageously fun and clever. And yeah, it was nice to be with that troupe of actors, including Marissa Tomei and there's some really wonderful, and Zendaya, some really wonderful actors.
That is amazing. I can't even imagine that, because I've watched that movie like 3 or 4 times, and I couldn't even. So you didn't get to meet these actors till maybe at the premiere or when you're pushing the movie.
I didn't go to the premiere, and promoting it. It came out at the end of 21, and at that point, everyone had really embraced Zoom interviewing. So all of the press that I did for No Way Home was via Zoom, and so I never, I like I said, I never did any press in person with any of those guys.
Well, the world has really changed. Well, your movie, The Accidental Texan, comes out this month, and I can't wait to see it. And thank you very much for making the time.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks for the time.